G'day mate and welcome to Capital Industry with me, GD, and a brand new island tour. And this one's a unique island, a unique island. Every island is definitely unique, but Tippy's island is a little bit more unique than most. Yes, not only have they reached the 100% sustainability benchmark, they've also decided to do it whilst launching rockets into space. And yes, I did say rockets. There's more than one rocket flying off every single year. And that's impressive. That's very, very impressive. For you, those of you who don't know, once you launch a rocket, you technically finish the game. Also, technically, as a technicality, you also get the pleasure of one extra uni for 12 months. Yeah. So you get a 1 uni bonus for the next 12 months. It's also literally launching materials into space. Yeah, there's no recycling for this one. So today, as I said, we're going to look through Tippy's base, who is a old school Factorio player, also a Capital Industry player, and has been playing since prior to update. Playing this save actually since prior to update 1 coming out. Tippy is part of the exclusive Canary group. They are the early beta testers, those that actually work out all the bugs prior to a major update going live, and I've had the pleasure of watching Tippy's progress as they've been playing through this map. So today we're going to be having a look around. Obviously we're starting off at the launch pad of not quite 4 rockets, but definitely 3 rockets, definitely 3 rocket assembly buildings. Crank out rockets as fast as they possibly can and launch them off to space. But I really think we should start with an overview, don't you? But before we get to any of that, I need to ask the most important question of all, and that is, can I borrow a like? I just like to borrow a like. I like to borrow a like. Right at the start of the video, not happy with the video, didn't enjoy the video, by all means, you can have your like back. Well, this is Tippy's Island, and I do my best. I do my best every single time I look at one of these islands to try and work out exactly what the original island was. And it took me a while. I admit it definitely took me a while. I actually had to turn on the resource overlay, which looks like that. And with the resource overlay on, I finally worked out it was the beach. Yeah, this is originally the beach map. It doesn't look anything like the beach map now, but it was originally the beach map. Now, as you can see, there's some certain design principles going on here. But I want to talk through some specific builds, some specific builds that I found fascinating. So in the back left-hand corner, we obviously have the launch pad. The launch pad, which is based around one of the launch pads near where they live, I believe. And as you can see, it has a wonderful. Not only do we have wonderful, limestone paths, they've gone all out with the barriers. Can I turn that off, please? Yeah, we don't care about that. Okay, all out with the barriers. The barriers, many barriers, which are painful to build because they're 1x1 tile, which means you can be very, very specific with how you want to place them, but they're 1x1, so they take a long time to place down. But they've done an amazing job getting this launch pad up and built. Yes, also the actual rocket launch pad does require a couple of inputs. Not only do you need to drive the rockets over the front, which happen with the power of automagic. Speaking of that, just so in case you're ever curious, you can recover a rocket. Yep. In case they ever get stuck, you can also scrap them. Yep. Yeah, you don't want a rocket to ever get stuck. You also probably don't want to scrap it. Anyway, the rocket launch pad does require 2 inputs. One is going to be the water for the water deluge system. The other one is the hydrogen fuel. So Tippy planned enough ahead where they actually buried the inputs for this system underground. So all the pipes are buried, so we have a nice clean build. And then a storage tank over the back, which also has the input pipe buried, which must take a lot of practice, either a lot of practice or a lot of patience to get the tank in exactly the right tile, perfectly lined up with its neighbor, with all the pipes laid in, and then fill in all the areas so the pipes can actually be laid in to then finally come back and build the storage tanks to connect pipe A to pipe B. Yeah, it's an impressive build, but right beside that is also another impressive build. Tippy said that they started piling up dirt, just saving it for later, making sure they could top coat the whole island, and then the dirt pile became sentient and kept growing. So eventually, when they got to the top, they decided, yep, that's a good place to put the captain's office, which is a very handy for me, so I can find exactly where the captain's office is, so we can click on it, so we can see what the captain's office is doing, what edicts they're using. So, under population, they have a growth boost 1, which is odd. Also, quarantine. Quarantine is a very, very odd one. It's sort of a last resort edict. It is whenever they get sick, whenever any disease comes in, 20% of your workforce goes and quarantines. So you need to have 20% of your workforce be free at all times, otherwise you're going to end up short on workers. And it reduces the effects of any ongoing disease by 40%, which is a massive amount. And as you might notice, they have 38,000 people with 9,000 people free. 9,000 free workers. So, yeah, quarantine actually works really well for them anytime diseases come in. Also, under industrial edicts, normally we see a whole lot of vehicle fuel saver 1 and 2. Also, ship fuel saver. We'll also see the maintenance reducer 1 and 2. And also the recycling increase. We'll definitely see the recycling increase maxed out. Maybe also some water saver, some farming boosting thrown in there as well. In the case of Tippy's case, they've gone a little bit overboard. They just have recycling. In fact, their Unity is 15 a month with, their edicts, all of 5 Unis spent on edicts. They're half a dozen contracts. They do have a lot of contracts. And the rock mine. Most islands do max out the rock mine to get 100% sustainable, because you're going to have to bring in rock for a certain number of processes. You need rock for a certain number of processes, and there's nothing you can do about that, because obviously they're not mining. They do have 4 dedicated diggers, which are parked at the bottom of the captain's office, doing a whole lot of nothing. They were part of the landscaping crew. Yeah, they have been officially retired. So, continuing around the back of the island, we have Mr. Shippy. We also have a forestry area, one of many. We also have one of their water input areas, and this is both wonderful and incredibly lazy. So water I always find interesting. I always find interesting in captive industry because water is one of those things that's very easy to get. It's just whether you can get enough and whether you can keep things flowing. In Tippy's case, they built a little blueprint which is 4 of the thermal desalinators hooked up to 2 electric boilers, which is very, very wasteful, but as you can see, they have a little bit of power, just a tiny bit. We're going to get to power in shortly, which is plugged into 4 seawater pumps and then 3 dumps. And this little blueprint, they just keep pasting over and over and over and over to make sure they have enough water for all their farms. We're going to look at the farms in a minute, but yes, you can also see that they have a custom pool made right here that they've flooded at some stage to make sure that, well, the farms would be covered. And another one over here, just to make sure you got nice local water. You don't have to go to the edge of the island. You can just tap some a little bit closer to home. So that brings us down to food processing. Food processing is probably where we're going to see a lot of Tippy's build style. Tippy's build style is a very, Factorio build style, where you build large modules. Let's go with modules. Now, in the case of the way I play Captain Industry, I tend to go with as interconnected design as possible, because there are efficiency bonuses you can get by connecting multiple designs together. Tippy's gone for the much more Factorio approach, where you build a large module that has inputs and outputs. In the case of this module, obviously it's going to need to have an input for sulfur, an input for limestone. That's going to make the tofu here somewhere. Also plastic for snacks. Snacks need plastic. They're going to have input from the farms, which are belted. They're going to have an output of sulfur from the exhaust scrubbing, because there's going to be some byproducts here we need to deal with. One of them is animal feed, so it doesn't back up. The other one's going to be biomass, so it doesn't back up, which they're, capturing that exhaust capturing the exhaust, turning that into, capturing the exhaust, grabbing the sulfur, taking the excess steam and running it into a couple of power generators for free power, because why not? And that's pretty much their design. Obviously, at some stage, they were obviously burning off extra animal feed, but that seems to be a retired system. But they've done a lot of their designs like this, with a input and an output, and it's all connected with belts. Yes, lots and lots of belts. And when they sort of max out the belts, when they max out a build, so they've had too many things being delivered via trucks, they come up here and they check on this, and they go analytics, and they say, hey, last 12 months, which was my biggest delivery? And we're going to see there's an awful lot of deliveries running around this base for a fully self-sustainable base. But they've just taken the attitude as, okay, what's my biggest delivery what's causing the most amount of jobs that I can get rid of quickly and easily. Currently, it would probably be graphene and sulfur, although there's going to be lots of little builds like this that are producing graphene and sulfur. Probably limestone. Limestone's probably the next easiest one to get rid of. So they'd find a couple of limestone routes and hook them into a couple of belts to cut down the trucks. And that's been their playstyle the whole way along. So if we look at general, they have 30 trucks driving around the base constantly doing deliveries. And we're going to see that repeated over and over and over. So we have, this is food. This is farming with farming with farming with a touch of farming. Also, there's some farming up here in the back corner as well, in case you're curious. And then I should mention this farming. This farming is unique farming. This is, well, tree saplings. Also flowers, because Tippy owns the Supporters DLC. They've had access to the Tomb of Captains, which we'll go look at shortly, which doesn't require you to deliver it flowers. It's the only building in the game that requires you to deliver flowers to, you know, make sure the captains have a pretty set of flowers for their final resting place. Also, this one and this one are also for more saplings because they need a lot of trees to keep up with their production. Funnily enough, they're not burning them, they're turning them into resources. But we're going to continue on to, well, our first build right here. And like I said, Tippy's design philosophy, let's go with design philosophy, is modules. Modules with a head unit, they refer to it as. So this is obviously recycling. Recycling is coming from, if we click on the belt, it is coming from, well, the town. Being that they have almost 40,000 people, there is an awful lot of recycling that comes out of that town every minute. So they've made a blueprint you might call it. So this particular blueprint gets stamped down. It's going to have a whole lot of recycling systems, which are then tied out to a couple of belts that then run into a main bus style. Yeah, which then runs into, well, processing. And there is an awful lot of processes. This is just from recycled goods. So we have a steel build, followed by a glass build, followed by a copper build, followed by a whole bunch of gold builds. Yep, turns out gold's backed up, or close to being backed up. Followed by a couple more steels, with a copper, with a glass. And as you can see, these builds are repeatable. They're blueprintable. We could cut there. There's that pipe. What's that pipe? That pipe's a water pipe. So that comes into this build. So we could cut from here to probably there, I would imagine, to there. And that would be a copper build. And they could place that anywhere on the end to make sure it consumed more copper. And all the belts just line up perfectly. So it just takes its feeds off the main bus at this end and outputs the main bus at this end. And rinse and repeat. You know, here's two more glasses. And again, they're just going to be 1-for-1 copies. So they're going to be from this tile through to, no, not that tile, there to there. So if they need another glass smelter, it's just smack, done. And that's how they've been dealing with a lot of these systems. So this, like I said, is all just recycling. It looks like there's a couple of spare feed-in belts back here, probably because, yeah, we're running through a balancer, and we have priority output, which merges all the copper scrap together. But obviously, there's more than a belt's worth, so they've had to take some around the outside and feed it in from the outside, because 6 recycling plants output an awful lot of material. Okay. Let me try and further explain this. So again, we have maintenance. Now not only is this a very unique way of doing maintenance, it's also a repeatable blueprint to do maintenance. So we have, as to be referred to it, a head unit. So thanks, autosave. We have, well, silicon poly needs to be brought in. Also plastic, also glass, some copper, rubber, and steel. So they put in this first section here. Then they'd put in, well, their blueprint requirements. So this is maintenance 1, which if we look at a maintenance 1, we require 24 mechanical parts plus 12 electronics. You make 24 electronics. You make 24 mechanical parts. You also make 24 mechanical parts. So our 24 mechanical parts come into our first maintenance building. Our 24 electronics are split between our first and our second maintenance building. And that becomes a little blueprint, which of course they've decided, well, if my storage is this wide, I'm going to have 2 of them side by side, which gives them a total of 4 maintenance buildings. And then when they're coming up to maintenance 2, same sort of principle. They need 18 mechanical parts. So they have, if I find the right building, no, that one. No? Crap. That one. They've just decided to overbuild a little bit. So they have a single building that's outputting 24 mechanical parts, of which they only need 18. And then they have, the electronics too. They need 12 of that. So that's 6. That's another 6 with the 12 set PCBs to feed those two other machines. And they need to have 6 and 6 electronics. And this single machine's outputting 24. So that's shared between these two and also shared between these two with, of course, mechanical parts on the end. And this is another little blueprint. So we have maintenance 1, maintenance 2, which all have common feed-in belts, common recycling belts. And then as for maintenance 3, well, maintenance 3 requires electronics 3. Also 6 mechanical parts. So they have a single machine cranking out 24 mechanical parts plugged into 4 maintenance depots with then a single box on the end to fit in the electronics 3. They haven't bothered building them on site. They're just having the trucks feed them in. But you end up with a repeatable blueprint. They're like, okay, I need more maintenance 1. Paste. I need more maintenance 2. Paste. I need more maintenance 1. Paste. Maintenance 3. Paste. So on and so forth. And originally they said that all of these would be hooked in via trucks, and then only as they end up with a situation where the trucks were busy too much, then they'd look at applying belts to it. Which means the base is somewhat organic, but also still follows the grand old factorio tradition of, think of the trucks more as trains. So we have little self-isolated builds that were being run by, say, Logibots, or some other means that then eventually Tippys had no choice. They've run out of trucks, so they've had to, hook in all the belts. So you end up with all the belts being fed down and fed into this system. Right beside this is construction parts, which have obviously been retired. We have vehicle parts, also retired. There's going to be a couple of retired builds along as we go. But then we have like this here. This is another recycling build. It's the exact same. It's just recycling. And these all output into, giant boxes. And then of those giant boxes, if the trucks were too busy, which obviously they have been, hence we have the belts feeding back out into a bus, they've just had to go, okay, it's time to belt some of this stuff out so we get a higher uptime with our trucks. Yes. Okay. So we have oil processing. Oil processing is interesting. Let's go with interesting. So we have distillation stage 1, 2, and 3. And U&U output 6 and 6 heavy oil, being 12. So they've put the heavy oil cracking unit at the front of the build. And then U&U output 24 of naphtha, which they have cracking here at the back, with, of course, sour water right beside that. So again, we end up with a little blueprint right here that can be copied and pasted multiple times. They were originally burning off some of the fuel gas to make the system run, but they've been replaced with electric boilers because, power is no longer an issue. We should go stop and look at power in just a second. Obviously, the fuel gas is being used to make hydrogen on site, and then at the same time, they have right here, the fertilizer 1, fertilizer 1, fertilizer 1, fertilizer 2, fertilizer 2, fertilizer 2, slag, also thrown some acid in on site, which I'm willing to bet does not have any sort of pipes plugged into it, because acid gets transported to places rather than just being piped across the map or making acid in a central location. Every build is sort of its own little self-isolated thing until they get to the situation when they have to go, okay, fine, that is it, that's enough. I need to actually have this hooked up from production A to production B via belts. So power, let's go look at power really quickly. So power is over here. You might recognize these things. These are the new fast breeding reactors as part of update number 1. And Tippy decided when it came to the question of power, the answer was yes. Just yes. Just yes. Yes was the correct answer. So each one of these builds requires, a fast breeding reactor, in case you don't realize, requires, show 60, yep, requires 4 core fuel, which is then going to give you some spent fuel, which you need to recycle. Also, you put in blanket fuel, which then gives you enriched blanket fuel. This process here can back up. This process here obviously can't back up. So the correct ratio for a fast breeding reactor is a nuclear reprocessing plant can reprocess spent fuel into core fuel at a high enough speed to run 2.5 reactors. Tippy's decided, well, they're just going to do 2 reactors. 2 reactors off 1 nuclear processing plant, which is more than enough. It's more than enough to keep the system running, which this is going to require some acids, some molten glass, a little piece of steel, and that's pretty much it. So steel is trucked in. Acid is trucked in. It doesn't use a great quantity of these things, so it's just easier to truck it in. I'm sure if they had the option of trucking in molten glass, they probably would have, but obviously they didn't have the option. We also have coal trucked in to run, well, the blast furnace, and you're going to need some yellow cake and some salt to make sure you have enough blanket fuel to keep the process running. Again, this uses like I think it's a half a yellow cake and a half a piece of salt per minute. So it's just a bucket. Just have the trucks bring it in. Same with the molten glass, which all comes from broken glass, because, well, if you process broken glass, you don't have to deal with slag. There obviously was a situation to deal with slag, but that's since been retired. And then, of course, these guys are going to output the, you're going to output the fission products. So the fission products come into, 2 radioactive waste storages that after 100 years, they're going to decay. Tippy did the maths and worked out that, 2 of these guys is more than enough to cover them for storage. And then eventually they're going to output the retired waste, which again is getting trucked away. Obviously, the trucks are a little bit busy at the moment and are getting around to it, probably because it means that they're currently processing the existing retired waste from some of these other builds, because it's just a simple, repeatable build. Same goes for their, the other end. So we have super pressure steam comes out. This is going to run into the power plant, which is super pressure here, followed by high pressure, followed by low pressure, and then they just take all the depleted steam, recover what water they can with a couple of cooling towers, and then that'll be the input right there. Protein, yeah, just grabs a little, it's the not protein is the one I want. This pipe. I just grab a little bit of extra water, which will come from one of these main water buses up from the farms and from the thermal desalination plants at the back. So they're just inserting the extra water that they need to make up that shortfall of the water that's lost in this particular plant. But it means that, yes, they have a 2.23 gigawatts total power. Also, currently looks like there's a flu season on because, a lot of people are absent from work. The quarantine, where are we? F5? Quarantine is kicked in. So we're currently in the middle of a quarantine. Everybody has gone to, is it that one? That one. So we have a flu severe. You don't tell me the mortality rate. Where do we find the mortality rate? I think it's on the medical. There we go. Mortality rate of 0.4. And we're only at 0.8. So that's why they're running it. So it means the worse flus they can hopefully mitigate by running quarantine. Because yes, the more people you have, the worse the diseases become, is probably the best way of putting it. So again, they're fitting in Medical 3. Medical 3 being, actually, this build right here. Perfect. So, Medical 3, again, it's a blueprint. So it has a head unit right here, which is going to provide the inputs and the outputs. So they need to bring in steel, also plastic. They need to bring in acid, which they're making on site. They're going to have an output of slag, a input of rock. They're also going to bring in glass and poppy. So that's their inputs. Also some water, some sugarcane. There's a few other intermediates. So right here, we make 12 medical equipment with another 12 medical equipment, which then gives you, combined with the disinfectant, is going to give you medical supplies number 1. Now, as for the disinfectant, it comes from right here, from a chemical plant, which is going to require 9-ethanol, which is made right beside it from sugarcane. Yeah, which the sugarcane is processed right beside that, with some oxygen that comes from that process right there. Yep, that process right there. Okay. So that gives them the Medical 1. Now, Medical 1 goes into Medical 2 with the addition of antibiotics. So right beside that, they have antibiotics processing, which requires, sugar and ammonia with some oxygen. So the ammonia is made here from oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen and the oxygen come from the electrolyzer, because they need to have hydrogen on site to combine the hydrogen with the nitrogen from the air separator, which then gives them their ammonia to then start making the antibiotics. We're going to have a little bit more sugar processing to run these machines, and with the ammonia that they're now making on site, we have our antibiotics. Antibiotics are going to come in here and give you medical 2, which then needs to go into medical 3 with anesthetics and also morphine. So right here we have a rock in with the acid that's being made on site, gives you hydrogen fluoride. Hydrogen fluoride, even though we're making 12, we need 12, so that's convenient. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. We need some of the ammonia from the previous step to combine with some steel to give you some anesthetics, and we also need to have some poppy with some acid, like I said, already making on site, with some glass to give you some morphine, which then gives you the medical 3. But again, this is a blueprint, so we can see that every single build is just a copy and paste to the previous, which means scaling up is so much easier. And this is a design philosophy that Tippy has taken all the way through their game, which I really, really love. Now, we should take a moment and talk about contracts, because, well, you've got some stock standard contracts. Nobody can avoid the good old construction parts for limestone. Also, household appliances, which requires an awful lot of copper, in case you're curious, to get your copper ore. We'll change this up to an 8 module. Cool. Also, slag for sour water, because they're doing so much smelting on site for, well, new materials that are coming in. They actually have a number of slag ships. Yes, we'll go look at the docks in just a second. Also, they're doing servers, which is very, very low on the steel, but reasonably high on the gold output for iron ore, plus also servers for gold. We're doing vehicle parts for crude oil. Also, solar panels for quartz. I want to go look at that build. Again, gold, so shipping out even more gold. Gold is not very easy to get, and also comes with a lot of waste materials, one of which being slag, an awful lot of slag. So we have gold for uranium ore, because they do need a tiny amount of uranium, like the smallest amount to keep the nuclear reactors running. We have consumer electronics for more crude oil. Could have a couple of different options, and also lab equipment 3 for coal. So that is their main imports. And then as we work around the map, so over here we have, this is going to be the uranium, which won't be moving too often. This is going to be coal import for our lab equipment 3. Next ship we're going to look at is, this is one of these slag to sour waters. So again, sour water pops in here, which is dumping clean water in the sea. Really? How rude. Okay, so sour water comes in. That's going to give you, it's going to require steam. It's going to give you sulfur, ammonia, and water. Obviously, the sulfur is being turned into slag, so you can re-export it back out because it's just quick and easy to do. The ammonia from all the sour water strippers is being converted on site into fertilizer 1 and also fertilizer 2 with some extra air scrubbers. And again, it's another little rectangle build. It follows the Factorio principle of everything has to be square or rectangle. I don't know why people have this philosophy, but they tend to. And then on-site steam, it just comes from an electric boiler, because again, power is no longer an issue, which is then plugged into a tank, which would have originally been shipped around via trucks, but has since been superseded. Yes, and a certain amount of the sour water that comes in, well, gets turned to slag on site and just goes straight back out the ship that it came from. Yes. Here we have rubber. We have their original power plant. They were very proud of this. This was their original power plant for a very, very long time. A whole bunch of the brand new diesel generators, Mark II, which they were taking all the exhaust out and choosing to scrub it. That pipe. That pipe right there. And choosing to scrub it right here on site. Up until they got nuclear up and running, they just ran a whole lot of diesel generators, which is a very wasteful way of doing things, but it obviously worked. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to look at quartz. Whilst we're here, we can do a quick look around the map. So down here, we obviously have this old copper processing. And again, there's little self-contained systems. So this is a self-contained little blueprint. Copper's obviously being shoved out into what is now a main copper line. But this is, again, following that same principle. So everything is coming in with a certain amount of feed in at the top, and then only as the game has progressed, as the trucks have got too busy, well, they've upped it and changed it to actually feed in from belts. And Tippy obviously is a master of laying belts, because not only are they straight and neat, there is upsy, downsies, lefty, rightsies. Yeah, I'm willing to bet a couple of these builds were rebuilt a few times just to get the belts to run in the order, or the belts were replaced a couple of times to get the belts run in the correct order. So it sort of made sense, and you could get one belt past the next. All right, we have gold processing, obviously. Gold. No, that's quartz. That's quartz. That's what I want to look at. So this is a quartz contract. Yes. So this is doing solar cells for quartz, which means that a whole bunch of quartz is coming in right here. And this quartz is processed on site right here. And we're not going to go through the quartz too much. You know, it's quartz into crushed quartz into sand into a whole lot of poly. Poly comes over here, gets mixed in with steel and glass to then make a whole lot of solar cells, which then get shipped straight back out. And if we click on the solar cell belt, that belt, we can see solar cells come along here and go, well, straight back into this building to be shipped out. As for the quartz comes into that bucket. No, this is the one I wanted. This, no. Where's that poly? Poly. That belt. That's the belt I want to follow. Comes into there, and then comes out and goes this way. Okay, comes out, goes this way, and then disappears off to who knows. Okay, no, this is not the belt I want to look at. Okay, there's another belt. There's a couple of belts. That ship is vehicle parts for crude oil. That one is servers for iron, which looks like it might have a little problem with uneven loading. That's construction parts for limestone. That was another sour water build, which as you can see is exactly identical to the previous build. We have right beside it, that is going to be concrete for concrete for vehicle parts for limestone. This is CO2 for diesel. Oh, this is yes. This is take water, add superheated steam from an electric boiler to give you hydrogen and oxygen. Take hydrogen, mix it with CO2 that's coming from different exhausts to give you fuel gas and water. Take the fuel gas, mix it with oxygen. We can get oxygen pretty quickly and pretty easily from an air separator to give you diesel. And a little bit of water as a byproduct. The water goes back into the boilers to be reboiled, and you just turned CO2, which was the only input into this system, into diesel. Yeah, it's an interesting recipe that's come up, and people have started using as part of update number 1. Consider that in the future when you're short on diesel. Just say, I need more exhaust. I can turn into more CO2. All right, I am looking for this build. This build. Okay, so this is another quartz to solar panel contract. Okay, we're obviously bringing quartz here, shipping quartz to here, and then turning that into poly. Now, poly comes into here. Is that? No, that's the out for the solar panels. I want the poly belt. Input. So comes through, poly's made here. Okay, in this build, we looked at this build previously, and comes into this balancer. Once it goes into this balancer, it has a priority output to feed its own build, to make sure it keeps running and it's self-sustaining. It's actually it's poly positive, or quartz positive. This is why people use this contract all the time, to make sure they have a quartz income. But then passes through, well, a buffer box, and that then takes our excess poly out, which if we follow the belt, pops up to here, which is another copy of the exact same build. So this is another quartz to solar panel build. And it's just taking the excess from the previous build, which is being brought into here, which will then have been used to seed this build to get it up and running. When I say seed, it means this poly has gone into here. This poly has come priority out into this particular build right here to get solar panels up and running, to then have enough solar panels to then activate this ship for it to leave, come back, and bring in quartz, which will then fire up the system and run at full speed. But there's a number of these identical builds and identical contracts coming in and out to keep this island fed. So what is this? This is polysilicon, solar for export. It's another slag for sour water contract. This is another rubber build, and the rubber build, again, it's diesel being, no, diesel's not trucked in, it's now piped in, but slag's being shipped in via truck still. Slag, sulfur, to just make rubber right here. I have no idea where rubber's going. These belts are thick boys, very, very thick boys. And you may notice that even though they've made very, very neat paths, a number of spots... No, there was one here. Yeah, like this. There's a very big bridge with almost, or every port, I think every port is being used. And then right beside it is a medium bridge where they've used every port again. They've had a significant issue with moving around trucks and moving around vehicles. We should stop and talk about the captain's tomb in the window. Again, use excessive use of limestone to fill in the ground underneath the wonderful captain's tomb. And then put in not one, not two, but 4 statues of maintenance. Please tell me that's not fed by... Where does that go? I think that's a retired relic. Where do you guys get fuel gas from? Huh? There's an underground pipe network. I have no idea where the fuel gas feeds into this. Fuel gas! Okay, so fuel gas feeds into here. And then obviously splits left, splits right. It's all buried underground, comes up here, splits left, splits right. We have the statues of maintenance that need to have fuel gas piped in directly. So obviously this has been retired. The flowers are brought in via, well, trucks. And then just popped up over our retaining walls, routed around the back into the back of the tomb. Along with, well, the fuel gas, which again is hooked into a buried pipe. I have no idea how much patience is required to build this, but oh my gosh. It's more patience than I have, that's for sure. So, with us stopping and admiring the tomb for just a minute. Oh, this one has no fuel gas. I wonder if a pipe broke. I wonder if a pipe broke. Is the pipe, like, not connected? No, the pipe's definitely running the right way. I wonder if a pipe broke or there's a pipe underground facing the wrong direction. It's fine. So, more ships over here, more contracts. Tippy has definitely gone overboard. Also, they have just a server or two. You know, if you're ever curious where to get a 4090 from, just head over to Tippy's Island. They're spares. They're just sitting around in all the data centers. Yeah, with all the cooling towers. To give them 3, they're using 2 out of 3 petaflops worth of processing power. That's amazing. Yeah. The town. Okay, we need to stop and talk about town for a second. We have consumer electronics. They need 150 laptops every month. That is a lot of laptops being thrown out the window. Also 300 washing machines. Glass rocket chairs were at the grand total of 410 to run 3,800. And also, not to mention feeding food into every single, yep. There's a lot of food hooked up to the village. And even though I've picked one that seems to be up, down, they are feeding in every single type of food. And although it's very much running a just-in-time delivery, they are maintaining, just as I open up the food drops below. They're generally maintaining a maximum food bonus. But this. So, a long time ago, Tippy started making this. The grand pooper of poop systems. So this particular town takes in 2,500 water per minute and outputs 2,000 poop per minute. Yep. So made a poop system. A wonderful poop system deals with a whole lot of poop, also deals with a whole lot of trash. So we can see, actually we might start over here. We can see that they have 2 and a bit poops out with 3 clean waters in. Because a pipe only carries 450 and they've gone slightly over that by doing a connector right at the machine or at the building, which technically lets you get slightly higher throughput. Yeah, which then they've brought over here into this lovely mess. So this lovely mess is obviously doing chlorine in the electrolyzer. Also, that has to be dirt, right? making dirt from the compost. Has all the poop processing, has filter binning being trucked in, is processing all the sludge into compost, yes, which is then getting turned into organic fertilizer. At the same time let's do here first, is processing and burning all the trash that comes in the system. Funnily enough, I noticed Tippy, it doesn't seem to be dealing with biomass from the town. There was a biomass collection. They paused that, which ups the amount of trash that comes out of the town, just in case you were curious. You want to cut down your trash, just make a biomass collector. Also, you can burn biomass. It's quick and easy to do. So they're bringing in a whole bunch of trash. They're creating the steam on site from something other than an electric boiler for a change. And then, the fuel gas comes from the poop processing, which is then running the trash burning. The excess obviously being burnt off right here to create steam. The steam from the boiler, also the exhaust being scrubbed, giving them low pressure steam, is then running a power turbine, creating, again, a little bit of free power. The tiniest amount of free power, but free power is free power from steam low, steam high from all these different subsystems. Yes, and again, they're recovering what water they can and then just injecting new water in. Sulfur, export. Graphite, export from the captured CO2 from both these scrubbers and also the boiler. Yeah, and this is a poop system. There's a chain poop system over here, and there's another poop system Another poop system over here. They require 3 poop systems. And this actually inspired me to build my own specialized poop system, which is designed to run up to 11,500 people, which does poop, trash, and bio waste. Yes, biomass, and is part of my, not currently, but it cut up to several pieces. It's part of my creator series. But yeah, this is one thing I definitely took some inspiration from, because as I said, myself and Tippy are both part of the Canary crew and have been talking back and forth as they've been running their playthrough. But I think we're definitely out of time. This is an amazing island. This is so many hours worth of playtime. I hate to think. There is so much forestry over here to make the how many rocking chairs per month. Also all the construction parts and everything else that they need to trade to then finally show their opulence by launching rockets into space, literally firing resources into space because they can. But as always, I'm going to thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and enjoying Tippy's island tour with me. So as always, thank you for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you in the very next video. All right, bye.